All right. Good evening. The hour of 6 p.m. has arrived. Calling to order this regular meeting of the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and on channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website, and it's posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets just as you enter the meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. The minute taker participates remotely, so those who speak and committee members, please remember to turn on your microphones. We have a full quorum ready to go. The first item is a DOJ grant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. Captain Steve Tenney from the Police Department. Tonight we're here with a grant. This is one we've partnered with the county for just about 15 years. The county applies for it and we co-apply with them. The purpose of this grant is that it pays for our cell phones and the air cards that are in our computers and our cruisers. It's a good grant. This year it's $5,501 and it offsets our cost greatly for cell phone and our computer service in our cruisers. I welcome any questions if you have it.
Members, committee, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming tonight. And I am very grateful that we've had this grant on an ongoing basis. It's wonderful. I will ask, as I had on a previous recent police grant, whether there has been the opportunity to review the language in the agreement. I understand our agreement is with Cheshire County, but the funds do come from the federal government, and we are in a different time right now. And I would like to ask to make sure that there has not been new language added to this year's agreement that may tie us into some type of aspect that we, as a city, are not comfortable with. That may have to do with access to those conversations that go farther than we would like, or some particular aspect that we are actually very uncomfortable with. So that's my question.
Yeah, sure. So this grant itself, what we enter into an agreement is with an MOU with the county, and that language hasn't changed. The county is responsible for filling out the grant in its entirety. In looking at our MOU, there is no new language. So I can't comment on the full grant itself. But I will say that we have, as you've asked, we have reviewed other language in the past, and we have determined that although it is different, it wouldn't change the way we operate.
That's great. May I follow up? City Attorney, could we be susceptible to a requirement that is not in the agreement with Cheshire County, but that Cheshire County may have agreed to in order to accept those federal funds because now we've gotten it from Cheshire County?
So I'm just speculating because I haven't seen the agreement myself. I can understand that that might be an option because we would be receiving funds through it, and I would anticipate if they're giving funds, they want to control how it's used. But not having seen the agreement, I don't know how that might look.
So, City Manager, how do we check on that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I would just say that the document can be shared with Amanda and reviewed, and she could take a look at that before the council meeting.
Perfect.
Other questions? Members of the public? Seeing none.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to co-apply with the County of Cheshire, New Hampshire, and to accept and expend the U.S. Department of Justice FY25 Burn JAG in the amount allocated to the city in the amount of $5,501.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I need a condition?
Second item on our agenda is to, we've got correspondence from a member of the public through the city clerk's office to comment on the CIP program. You all got that with your packets. So, motion?
I do,
Oh, sorry.
Just the letter.
Yes, yes. What, yeah.
No,
Comments?
she knows where I was going, so.
She read your mind. Oh, getting good. All right.
okay,
Now,
all right. Well,
Move to recommend that the written public comments regarding the proposed capital improvement program 2027 to 2020 or 2033 be accepted as informational.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. All right, third item this evening is the proposed capital improvement plan, 2027 to 2033. We've spent a couple of evenings discussing this and going through it, and it's now our opportunity to have other comments if we wish. And before we get started, the manager would like to make a few comments to remind us of where we're at in this process.
Thank you, Chair. So we have received all the written communications after the public hearing by the deadline, and you acted on that this evening. So there's no additional comment from the public tonight. This is really just questions of maybe of staff and conversation among the committee. I did want to just update you on a few things. The planning board reviewed the plan on Monday and voted that it was consistent with the master plan. And just a reminder, because it can be confusing as to why the capital plan goes to the planning board when it's really a financial planning document. There's a statute in New Hampshire, RSA 674:5, that authorizes the municipalities to adopt a capital improvement plan and establishes the planning board's role. And the planning board is really taking a look to see that the projects are consistent with the community's master plan. Their role is primarily planning and policy alignment and not budgeting. So questions like, do the proposed capital projects support the goals of the master plan? Are infrastructure investments coordinated with land use planning? Do projects support orderly development and growth patterns? So that's really the scope of the review of the planning board, not the financial pieces. And they did have that review and they did vote that it is consistent with the master plan. And so now it's really up to the council to decide whether or not to amend or adopt the plan as presented. The other thing I wanted to mention, the letter that's included with the capital plan includes a reference to the city's fiscal policy. Because the finance department had been focused on training an entirely new team, you've heard me say that a couple times, the finance director did not bring forward proposed changes this year. And so to ensure that the review occurs for the upcoming year, we have already scheduled a fiscal policy workshop for June 30th at 6 p.m. in council chambers. So that should be on your schedule now. This evening, we are going to be planning to provide some additional information about projects that we heard comments or questions from the members of the public at the public hearing. One is the public bathroom. The Public Works Director has additional information to share regarding public bathrooms in response to the comments raised or in the questions asked. I would also just remind the council that public bathrooms are currently included in the CIP for FY28, so not for the upcoming budget, but the year after. So regardless of the decision made this evening, there will be another year for the council to evaluate whether to proceed and what type of facility would be appropriate before it would be considered as part of the fiscal 28 operating budget process. And as always, the CIP is a planning document and does not obligate the council to undertake any future project. The other thing that he will be talking about tonight is the road construction budget. The Public Works Director will review the funding structure for the downtown infrastructure project. We didn't talk a lot about that. It's been updated several times. And this will include the use of the year's fiscal 26 road construction budget, as well as the funding that would otherwise have been allocated to next year's road construction funding, so fiscal 27. And so we just want to highlight that. I have also had a conversation with the mayor about the possibility of adding $500,000 to the road construction program for fiscal 27. So the mayor is interested in seeing the plan be amended this evening to add additional funding for additional road work, although he is a member of the public and not allowed to speak this evening. So in anticipation of that discussion, I have asked the Public Works Director what they would recommend if the council chose to add $500,000 to road construction in fiscal 27. He's identified two options. The first would be complete Court Street from Route 9 to Central Square at an estimated cost of $478,000. Alternatively, if the council preferred to spread the funding across multiple locations, they would recommend completing a smaller section of Court Street along with work on Emerald Street. Now, that's just to give you a sense of how they would prioritize the use of those funds. There's still time to have those decisions made. But right now, if you were to put this in the CIP as a placeholder, that's what it would be recommended to be put in there for. So if the council is interested in doing this, it will require an amendment to the plan to add those additional funds. And I also just want to talk a little bit about the downtown infrastructure project. We know that those bids are coming in mid-April. Actually, I think it's the day of our council meeting in mid-April. So because we are planning to utilize fiscal 26, so the budget you've already approved and that we're operating in right now, we will need to, if we have a successful bid, move or reallocate the use of those funds from road construction for the projects that were listed in the CIP to the downtown project. And so we'll need to do that either that evening or close to that evening. So tonight, in regards to the $500,000 being added to road construction, it would be a placeholder contingent upon council determining that the resulting tax impact is manageable after the downtown infrastructure projects have been reviewed. Because there's a lot going on, there's a lot of moving parts. One, we need these bids back for the downtown infrastructure project. Two, we're also trying to put together a budget right now to understand where we will be in terms of your fiscal policies as they stand right now. And so understanding all of those things as we go through the budget process, having the $500,000 right now would just be a placeholder and a decision to be made later. So those are my opening comments, and I would like to ask the Public Works Director to come forward and talk about the bathroom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director, and I get all the fun jobs. I got a couple of slides to show you tonight in response to Mr. Cost's letter, which I believe you have in your packet. I don't believe Mr. Cost is with us tonight, but he mentioned the Portland Loo, and if the projection, there we go, thank you. So he's absolutely right in his letter identifying that the Portland Loo is a less expensive option. It is one of the options we looked at. In fact, if you read that page in the CIP, it's page 94, in the narrative description, it talks about Portland Loo being one of the options we considered. So I want to just kind of take a step back and talk about a few different options. So I'm gonna cob and steel plagiarized directly from my colleagues, and thank you to the city engineer for reaching out to the folks in Nashua. These first two slides I'm going to show you actually were from a presentation their DPW gave to their city council back in October. So I borrowed heavily, so to speak. So the first option that they looked at, and I in no way recommend this one, is a portable restroom trailer. I don't think it would be aesthetically appropriate in the downtown. And these are really designed for short-term events. They're not intended to be permanent facilities. They're lightweight construction. You know, the petitions are 2x4s and particle board. It just wouldn't hold up. But be that as it may, the work was already done for me, so I included the slide. You know, the cost on this, the initial purchase cost is very low. But, you know, excuse me, it has some drawbacks. It doesn't have the design features that make it more safe and tamper resistant and whatnot. It's not going to be as durable. It's not connected to the utility system. It would be basically a porta potty on wheels. So we would have to have a service company come and pump it out each week, what have you. So again, not something we're recommending, but it is a consideration. The next one is the Portland Loo, the famous Portland Loo. They are extremely durable, very, very well built. They're basically just all stainless steel. They are a little cheaper than the other option that we looked at, the self-cleaning option. The real drawback here is the maintenance requirements. The manufacturer's website actually recommends these units need to be cleaned 2 to 5 times per day in order to stay, you know, acceptable and hygienic. To be quite honest, and I talked to our facilities director, Andy Bohannon, about it, he really does not have the staff that could visit this facility twice each day. Even if you know, not taking aside how we would manage it on weekends when we don't have any staff here to do cleaning. I think that would be a real challenge, and that's really, I think, why we are not pushing this as an option. But they're very well made, they're very durable, and it would be quite a bit cheaper in initial cost. I should also point out, this is kind of an open-air facility. So it's, you see the grating here at the top and at the bottom. Those are just open vents. And they're designed so you have privacy, but with security. So the idea is the slats on the bottom point downward, so you can look in and see somebody's feet or if somebody's laying on the floor, but you can't, you know, see what they're doing on the toilet, not to be too graphic. Similarly, the slats at the top point up, so you can see if somebody's standing up in there, but you can't see necessarily what's going on. So that means that the wind blows through as well. So they are I would say they're designed to discourage loitering. The option that we're kind of recommending and what the basis of the cost estimate that's in the CIP is a self-contained unit. This one is designed by Urban Blue as a manufacturer. They are more expensive in the first instance. The real advantage is that they are self-cleaning. So they have a cleaning function that'll clean the toilet after every user. And they have a series of jets that will flush any debris or waste or anything on the floor after, like, you can program it, but the default setting is after every 10th user, it washes the floor. And because it has those self-cleaning features, we don't have to send somebody there twice a day. We budgeted for it to be visited every other day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we would send somebody down to do a full cleaning, replenish the paper supplies and whatnot. And that really, that the savings is in the long-term operations and maintenance costs. The other things that I like about this unit, prefabricated concrete, it's really very robustly made, so it's designed for durability. The electronics have time limits, so after 20 minutes, it automatically unlocks itself. So if somebody can't just, occupy it and camp out there for the evening. It will also send an alert to an official, whoever, whether that's PD or Public Works or Parks and Rec, whoever gets the tasked with it. It'll send an alert that somebody is loitering in the facility and to go, move them along. You do a variety of different aesthetic treatments. The model here is just, it's aluminum planks on the top with like a stone facade on the bottom. But, I think with this type of treatment, it looks a little more aesthetically appealing for the downtown area. And it is heated, which is super nice. So I did a quick and dirty life cycle cost analysis. The first line is the initial cost, the installation and purchase price. Obviously, the trailer is very, very inexpensive. The Portland Loo is about $100,000 less than the Urban Blue, the self-cleaning unit, so it is a significant savings. Both of them are very durably built, so I said that they would both last about 20 years. Where the real difference comes in is in the operating costs. So you'll see the bathroom trailer has an annual operating cost of almost $43,000. For that, we're assuming it would be 2 1.5 hour visits each day. Takes a little bit longer to clean because the smallest trailer unit is actually 3 bathrooms, not just 1. So you do get more bathrooms, but it takes a little longer to clean. Because it's pretty light-duty construction, we assumed a larger amount for repairs annually. So this includes $10,000 annually for repairs. For the Portland Loo and Urban Blue, tongue twister, we're carrying $5,000 a year for repairs and maintenance costs. The operating costs, the cleaning expenses for the Portland Loo, that includes 2 1-hour visits each day, Monday through Friday. For the Urban Blue, it's a 1-hour visit 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that labor difference is really what adds up over the course of the year. So you can see over the course of a 20-year lifespan that the more durable units will be expected to last. The Portland Loo is actually a more expensive life cycle cost than the self-cleaning unit. Now, there's a lot of assumptions. It's a very simplified analysis, but at the very least, I think they're in the same range. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that if the community ends up deciding that Portland Loo is the way to go because they're a little less expensive to install, I understand that, but it would mean we would need to have to staff that work as well. So it would be an extra cost there. The other question that he made in his oral statements, but not in the letter, Mr. Cost, I think it was Mr. Cost that mentioned proprietary parts for the Urban Blue. I did reach out to the manufacturer this week and talk to them about that question, and they assured me no. Everything in the mechanical room is standard off-the-shelf parts. The proprietary items are the toilet and the sink in the bathroom unit itself. They have them made for their own specifications, and they're actually like precast concrete units that are then wrapped with fiberglass to be easily cleaned and whatnot. So they're very, very durable and easily cleaned and what have you. So those are proprietary. Everything else is a off-the-shelf part. And with that, I'd happy to answer any questions you have about public restrooms.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. In terms of, the Urban Blue makes the most sense, but has the highest price tag, and I think part of it is timing. But luckily, it's a couple years out. One of the other issues that occurred with the traditional bathroom was things being shoved down the toilet. So in the Urban Blue, can they still clog up the toilet, or is there something that prevents that too?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any such thing as an uncloggable toilet. I've heard horror stories from my staff about, finding actual sweatshirts in the sewer system. I don't know how it gets by there, but it does. So, yeah, that is something that could still be done.
Okay, and then I have one other question. You talked about 20-minute timers.
Yeah.
So after 20 minutes, the door unlocks.
Right.
It's not a matter, because I received a few questions after our initial discussion where there were concerns that in 20 minutes, the police would have to show up and unlock it, but it's just,
No, the way it's set up is after 20 minutes, and that 20 minutes it's a setting, it's a user setting. The default is 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, the unit will unlock itself. So it'll show that as being vacant. And we can set it up so that the police get a notification that there's somebody loitering in the unit and they can stop by and check, but they don't have to go and unlock it.
and then one last question. It would have been interesting but I can see why it wasn't included, to have included a traditional bathroom, and if we had installed that, the cost, including maintenance and et cetera. But I'm not sure I would necessarily support one being traditional anyways, because we are where we are because of the problems that we had that were ongoing for years. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to, it's not Cordon Bleu, but it's somebody blue, about the. Urban Blue, thank you. About the parts, about making sure that they would be available, because I do agree with Ken that that's a big concern. I'm wondering whether you had the opportunity to check with these other locations in New England where the Portland Loo is being used, as to how that's going. Cambridge, Mass., Greenfield, Mass., and Burlington, Vermont, as Amherst, Mass., and Portland, Maine. By any chance, has anyone had a chance to say?
I was not able to reach out to those communities. So
Okay, I'm looking forward to somehow one of us, maybe I will, whoever is appropriate, to see how they're going.
Yeah.
To understand. I am completely unconcerned about them being cold. That strikes me as a good thing. As long as the plumbing is working, I'm happy that they don't want to stay. I don't believe it's our responsibility to make it comfortable for them to have a place to go potty, just a respectful place to go potty. But these are right in our neighborhood. So I believe that it would be extremely helpful for us to hear from communities. Some of these are even closer to our size in terms of a municipality. I personally feel that, may the whole place not erupt, that one 24-hour bathroom downtown is not enough. I had comments from constituents who said, listen, we have not gone through a public process and allowed the public to be part of a discussion, of an analysis, of looking at different options, and I completely agree that that would be ideal. However, we've gone for 13 years already, and this is quite a time of tumult, and I would anticipate that a public process, as they inherently go, will take a good period of time. I personally am still going to express my support, barring these reviews from other communities, for this one to get started with as potentially the Portland Loo, and then a public process for something in the future. So.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, as the manager pointed out, this is scheduled for 2028. I strongly suspect that this will not be the last conversation we have about public restrooms. And in the CIP, we identified a couple of viable options, what we thought were viable options. But you're right, we haven't, made a final decision yet. And the thought process is we're going to carry a budget that'll allow us to do all of what we had identified as viable options. If it comes down to we choose the Portland Loo and we can save some money on the construction project. I hardly ever get chastised for bringing more money back to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually on Facebook a little earlier this afternoon. For those that use Facebook regularly will know that you get those reminders every once in a while of things that happened in years past on this day. And interestingly enough, it was 4 years and 1 day ago, I was actually sitting at that table with Councilor Williams and Councilor Workman before this committee on the homelessness issue. And stemming from those discussions, we set up an ad hoc committee that reviewed a number of issues. And bathrooms were, of course, one of them. It was something that, I was adamant about us doing something about. And I know we'd actually worked with the city manager at one point to actually put a porta potty over on Gilbo. Unfortunately, that experiment only lasted, I believe, a couple of weeks before we were forced to remove that. And the Portland Loo was actually another one of our talking points. And I think at that time, we were expecting it to be about $200,000. And at that time, we were pretty surprised at how expensive those were as well. But the Portland Loos have been around for a bit. So, seeing the new 440,000 mark after being a bit surprised about the 200,000 mark just 4 years ago is a lot to stomach that we'd be spending on just a single bathroom, where I know that we need something to be done, but we have done some things. I believe we now have some signs outside, at least during the week, that our public restrooms are open while City Hall is open and the library is open. So we at least do have some signage. It's just the overnight piece and the Sunday piece that we have to figure out some resolution for. I did do a little bit of research on the Portland Loo because it has been around for a few years. It's across the country, across North America. I think I saw even some up in Canada that have been in use for a number of years. They seem to hold up pretty good. Generally, the reviews that I saw were pretty positive of the Portland Loo, actually. It's the price tag that a lot of people got stuck on. Once they're in, they work well, but it's that first price tag that is tough. A lot of those cities, too, were much bigger than Keene and had a much larger budget to be able to do projects like this. So while I'm not opposed to us having some sort of placeholder, as the city manager was talking about, a lot of this is, strategic planning, but placeholders for when we actually get to those budgets later. I'm going to have a hard time getting on board with, nearly $500,000. And who knows what the construction costs will be in 2 years' time. So, thank you.
Other comments? Colonel?
As I've listened to this over and over, what keeps popping into my mind is a total lack of responsibility, accountability, and gratitude. Okay, we're trying to get ahead of a game because no matter what we've done in the past, there's always been a group of people who have found a way to compromise the system. And so as we try to get better and better to protect the system, it costs more and more. And I don't know if we're ever going to win in the end, because no matter how offensive you get, it's always cheaper to defeat it. It only takes a small drone to inflict a lot of damage. And someone or somebody, group, is going to find a way to damage this and frustrate it. I wish we could come up with something that would be indestructible, but I don't believe this is going to be indestructible.
One point of clarification, I heard on the radio that comment that 100 Nights is, 1 minute away and they're open. They are not open 24/7. They close at 6. They were open for a short period of time when they were acting as a winter shelter 24/7. They are not anymore, so they're closed at 6 as well, on the weekends as well, and they're a 12-minute walk. Just points of clarification. Thank you.
I guess I gotta chime in. First of all, just a detail. Somewhere in one of our discussions about downtown, I thought I heard that the downtown bathroom building may be also part of the electrical system from the pavilion next door. Incorrect?
So that was an idea that we've been talking about internally with Brian and the folks that are going to be doing that design. The structure can be ordered in different sizes. So we would basically order it with an extra large utility space. And the idea, anyway, this hasn't been decided, but we could order it with an extra large utility space and put the electrical equipment for the solar array in that utility space, just to keep it out of the elements and protect it a little bit. That's not a requirement. We could also, mount it up in underside of the deck, that sort of thing. But I think it would be a nice way to do it.
Okay, thanks. That clarifies that one. Annually, whether it's finance or council, we talk about the downtown bathroom. We've had many, many people working on this. So there's been lots of ideas, lots of work. Bottom line is, we need to do something. There's no question about it, that something needs to be done. And in my opinion, we ought to do it in a way that makes sense. And if you look at these slides, the money's about the same. The blue does not cost $442,000. It costs $286,000. All the rest is what you're gonna have to do no matter what you do, or the utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So trying to put it in perspective would be pretty helpful for folks that are gonna make this decision next year. That's the other thing that we have to keep in mind. We're not gonna solve this year. Unfortunately, it's an important item. So thanks for that extra information, because it's helped me, and it'll probably help other people to really look and see what we're trying to do and understand the cost a little bit better. Thanks. Other members of the committee? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That sparked maybe just a clarifying question then, maybe around the timing of the project. Right now, are we anticipating that this would be aligned with existing work on Gilbo, and therefore things would already be dug up?
So
And so if the cost is already being sunk into the $100,000 of prep? Is
there could be some savings by kind of glomming it on with the solar pavilion project. And, the solar pavilion project is really just starting at the design phase. So I don't have a very confident idea of when that's going to go into construction at this point, just because it is federally funded, and that always seems to add months onto the process. If everything goes perfectly, it would work out great to start both projects late summer next year. July, August timeframe. That would be FY '28 for our purposes, and it would, be the same for the solar pavilion, and then they could both go together. That would be ideal. I don't know if that's going to all line up that way. Yes, yeah, we're, I don't know how to turn those screens off, but the manager stole my thunder just a little bit, but that's okay. We were chatting earlier this week, and it seemed like, I don't know that we were as clear as we could have been about the funding for the downtown with respect to roads. So I wanted to draw your attention to page 92, if you have the books with you tonight. On that table, there's a column for current available funds. If you compare this table in the previous version of the book, the road preservation and rehab line was not in the previous version. We added it this year. So In FY '27, we're proposing and suggesting that the money that had been planned for regular road paving here, there, and everywhere, there's a whole list of projects, that money instead be used to do road rehab as part of the downtown project. But we're also suggesting that the FY '26 money, the money that we would have spent paving projects this summer, be similarly reallocated to the downtown. Now, there's a little bit of a conundrum there. FY '27, you can act on that as part of approving the CIP in the next week. That part is a little easier. FY '26, you've already approved us to use that 1.4 million for a specific list of roads. So there will need to be a separate council action in order to say, don't pave these roads like we told you last year. Instead, use that 1.4 million as part of the downtown project. So the manager alluded to that, but depending on when we get these bids and we have all of the information in front of us, we do plan to come in front of the council or the committee and say, hey, here's what the bids are, here's where we are. Part of the plan was move into 2026 money, and get your approval to do that at that time. Does that clarify the 26 funds?
Good? Go ahead.
We know how the bids came in the first time.
Yep.
They were way low. You made a lot of adjustments, and you're proposing to make another adjustment. But we were in a much saner time when those bids came way over last time.
Yeah.
And so it could be, I just don't really feel comfortable with the possibility of getting a sane bid for something to start work in 2 months.
A war in the Middle East and, a global disruption of the petroleum markets was not on my bingo card when we were planning this project. So, I understand your concern. I share it. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about what's happening over there. And really, we'll know on April 16th what the answer is. But that's part of the reason why we didn't bring this forward as an action already, because we really want to have the information in front of us so we can give you a final answer.
So maybe it's not going to be just a yes or a no. It would probably be a further modification to get the project going instead of delaying it another year.
I think anything's possible. As we know, we are always hopeful and optimistic, but we really won't know until the bids come in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think some of it had already been alluded to, right? There's maybe an idea of us trying to pull some of this forward, right? I'm still trying to get my head around to exactly how we would go about doing that, right? Because the original idea of us not doing major rehab in '27 is because all of the funding needs to go somewhere. But it's also that's 2 full seasons of not doing major rehab around the city. Seems like too long of a time to me to be going without doing that. So I guess I'm not sure what the best plan would be. Do we just for now say let's do another 500,000 in '27, or do we pull 500,000 from '28 into '27 to help try and balance it over at least a couple of years, but at least get ahead of Court Street? But I think maybe one specific question I had is, so Court Street to Route 9 was one of the suggestions, right, at 478. Do we know, when were we planning on doing that section of Court Street? I see a little bit of it in 29. Was a chunk of it for this year? Because I see Emerald, there's 158 for Emerald in 28, and then there's 157 for Court in 29, and I just don't see Court planned any other time. So I'm just wondering, where are we bringing that forward, or would we be pushing that from 26 out to 27?
I might need to phone a friend.
Okay. It's possible I'm getting too granular with like the specific plans here where we're just trying to do, again, some general guidance. But those are the two things I'm trying to balance right now, is do we just pull forward 500,000 or do we add 500,000 to 27?
That was just a portion of it. Yeah.
29. It was planned for, a portion of it was planned for fiscal year 29. Based on the condition, we have been considering it to move up with unspent funds for some time. So with the reshuffling of the 2 years of planned road rehab work, it made the most sense to pull that forward, allowing us to backfill with other roads that we aren't able to do as part of those 2 years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and just a follow-up comment then, is, yeah, the roads definitely took a beating this winter. I think we need to do something. I'd be interested in either the city managers or my fellow committee members' thoughts on adding the 500,000 or pulling forward 500,000.
I honestly think either works because we will know more when we do the operating budget and as we move forward what those numbers really need to be. So I'm guessing there will be more adjustments as we move forward. If you want to keep the dollar amount pretty close to the same as proposed, pulling forward from 1 year, just means we'll have reduced road construction work over 2 years instead of reduced in one and full in another. It's entirely up to the council.
So, we're throwing balls up, really, it's gonna be a tough one. And the real reality of construction, et cetera, no matter what we think we can do on Court Street, it's probably gonna cost more than we think it's gonna. And are we gonna be able to pull this together, before snow flies this year, with everything else you have to do?
Yeah, we did talk about that. I'm putting together a paving project for a specific area like that is something that our engineers, we talked last night about things that our own in-house engineering does really well. That's one of them. That's one of our bread and butter projects. I'm very confident that we could put together a contract for that work this summer. My suggestion, honestly, at this point, would be to kind of leave what's in here as is. We'll know on April 16th, a lot more information than when we have tonight. Once we have that, we know where all the dust is settled. I think then we're going to have a lot more options. Whether, we didn't get good bids, and we want to kick this thing to next year, so let's go forward with the FY26 paving program, or we got great bids and we want to move forward, and next year we can add. We're just going to. Right now, we're kind of guessing. I think after April 16th, we're going to be able to give you a much better recommendation.
May I ask you made mention to the fact that the bids are due on the same night of city council. So is it going to be actually reasonable to expect that we'll have information on that city council night? Or do we need to prepare ourselves to wait another 2 weeks?
Yeah, I don't expect we're going to have an action for you to take on it that night. We'll be able to let you know what the bids were. But then we still have to review the bids, make sure they're qualified and that they dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's and whatnot. If there's changes going to be made, we would suggest that it happen with the next cycle.
Sit, hope for the best, and no matter what happens, we can adjust before we get started on whatever project we else? Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back just for a second to toilets. If you go to the hospital or the clinic, to prevent things that shouldn't be flushed down the toilet, they now have metal in them with even a cutting edge, so things like sweatshirts and such can't go down the toilet. Unfortunately, other more serious things up at the hospital, but I don't know if that's something when we look at installing a bathroom, that could be researched and considered.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and I certainly have a conversation with the facilities maintenance staff about something like that. What I understand about those types of devices is it definitely helps on the maintenance of the system downstream, but it increases the amount of care and feeding that thing will take, at the point of use. So you're basically trading problems at the pump station for more frequent visits from your janitorial staff. But it's something we could look into for sure.
Anything else about the CIP?
Move to recommend the adoption of the capital improvement program for FY 2027-2033.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion up here? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and keep it quick. I think I've made my positions generally fairly clear tonight that I really would like to not go 2 full seasons of doing road work. Of course, we need to find where the money is. I will heed the director's advice. Let's send this along as it is. Things are going to change in the next couple of weeks. Let's reevaluate at that point.
Anything else? It's moved and seconded, right? All in favor? No one's opposed, it's unanimous. Well, thank you, everybody up here. Thanks to all of you out there that put this together and putting up with all of our questions and ideas. This will go to council next week. They will have an opportunity to have a few words, and we will see what else comes forward that we might have to deal with as we move down, as we get close to the budget, regular budget season. Thanks to the staff, thanks to those who came to watch us, that came to speak. Thanks to all you here. We're adjourned.